Hello, everybody. Very nice to meet you all. So, here we are in another session. So, with no visible bruises, with our specialist Caroline Harley-Bell. So, actually, this is like a session. We'll definitely get to her, and uh, we like this is like a follow-up session from like the last time, and from that topic we discussed. The different types of abuse and how coercive control and isolation affects your mental and emotional health. From there, there were many questions that arise. So we are going to invite Caroline to, if possible, to answer these questions. So I would be honored and very happy to invite Caroline Halliwell. So, Caroline, would you like to say what you are doing these days and about your profession a little bit so the audience can get to know you also more?
Brilliant. Yes, thank you so much, Sanjivana, Yogi. Amazing. So, yeah, so I'm so grateful, as you say, for the opportunity to come together and to do this series on no visible bruises, because ultimately, as a domestic abuse survivor and a survivor of sexual assault post separation abuse, obviously I've been on quite a journey myself and found trauma informed coaching to really have helped me move forward through those traumatic events. And as you say, like, trauma isn't what happens to us, it's what happens inside of us because of what happens to us. So it's too much, too quick, too fast, and our nervous system ultimately just doesn't know how to cope with all of those successions of trauma in such a short period of time. And so, you need to be able to hold some space and some grace for yourself to be able to recover mentally and emotionally, because, as we said, no visible bruises. It's not about what people can see, or the shame and blame of saying, well, you're not in that relationship anymore, just get over it. It's like, no, you have a whole lot of neo re-somatic programming and to have to be able to work through, and those emotional habits and those emotional blocks that we've developed in order to try and cope through the abuse, that we then have to try to unwire or reassimilate into a way that's actually more productive for our life, because we have to appreciate as well that those behavior patterns, when we were in that environment, were doing the very best they could in order to help protect us so that we could live another day. That's ultimately what our nervous system is just designed to make sure that we live this second and keep living this second. And so it will sometimes feel like your nervous system will get kind of addicted to the pain sometimes as well, because it's like, well, you lived and you survived through that, so that must have been okay. It doesn't really worry about whether or not you're happy or sad as long as you're alive. So understanding that element of how my nervous system works really helped me to take a massive leap forward in my own recovery. And then again, as you say, like, after sort of understanding that, then I started to explore brain spotting as a modality to help me really find a very fast, laser focused way, which also incorporates somatic experiencing, to be able to release and resolve and process the traumas that I'd had, so that I wasn't still stuck in those behavioral patterns. I wasn't still stuck in extreme paranoia. I wasn't still stuck in agoraphobia and not going out, like, because ultimately, when you've experienced sexual assault, it breaks your trust with the world. Which is there, absolutely. And then obviously getting those behavioral patterns coming in to try to keep you safe and away from that potential danger again moving forward. But ultimately, it can be debilitating in a longer term. So yeah, as you say, just figuring out ways to be able to live your life knowing that moving forward, because ultimately you can never go back to the person that you were before the trauma. The only place you can go to is moving forward.
Oh, thank you so much. So, uh, So, Caroline, we'll get into these questions. Uh, so actually, I asked like we covered two questions from that last time. Uh, so one was like
Yeah.
abuse can it occur in other places? Also, we asked, no, and you
Yes.
definitely answered those questions. And if you like to add in something or something like that, or more things or something, please be feel free to do so. Yeah, and
Yeah. So let's just pick that question up again. Just again, as we said last time, abuse can happen in any area of your life. Okay, as much as it happened to me in my domestic area, through a marital relation, it can happen as a parental child area, it can happen as a work employee boss scenario, ultimately. And it can happen more so like if you're getting into groups as well, like that kind of coercive control, trying to manipulate people into feeling like they're part of something
Mhm,
larger than themselves, and then getting the gift bombing, and finding that sort of like addiction to be feeling like you're included with something, and then having that desire to be accepted
mhm,
manipulated into doing things that are counterproductive to yourself and to the greater society. So ultimately, abuse and coercive control in that regard is, it can be seen anywhere that you look for it, ultimately. um,
mhm,
and so as people that are trying to move forward to create a more compassionately aware society and environment for us all to live in, it's about knowing the keys to look for as well
mhm,
in
mhm.
that. Yeah. So,
So in if we summarize it, we can say like this abusive process can happen in any place, anytime, and in any stage of the life also, right?
absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah.
uh, uh,
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, we can only learn from our from our mistakes, ultimately, in that regard.
mhm,
So but by being able to know what to look for,
mhm.
and understanding that initially, it does help you to create a boundary so that you do not get embroiled in those sort of things moving forward. you know yeah.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much. Yeah. Then we asked like actually you answered this. So anything if you feel like some added thing or extra thing that should be added, please do so. Otherwise, we can go to the next question. I don't want to tire you or anything. So we asked like according to cultures, how do we identify whether it's abuse or just a cultural trend? I mean, like we cannot cover it as a culture and then forget abuse. But sometimes some people choose, no, like, and this is their livelihood or this is according to their surroundings. This is how it is. But with comparison, it can change from country to country. And when you look at it, and some people, it's not abuse for them, maybe it's parenting or like family environment. In some places, like they work very hard, no? So yeah, you should surely, if there's anything extra or something, please add, or we can move to the next one even.
Yeah, well, again, as you say, people can look back to sort of what we were discussing on the previous
Sure, sure.
podcast as well. But yeah, ultimately, we have to be able to respect the opportunity for everybody to live the life as they
Mhm,
want to. It's just, again, if it's abusive, then what it's doing is it's taking away from other people's opportunity to also grow. So yeah,
mhm,
ultimately, every society is different, and as we said in the previous podcast,
yeah.
we need to have the opportunity to have variety, because otherwise that's a different style of abuse completely, if we're completely oppressed and just squished into one niche of being able to do something.
Mhm,
So being able to express our freedom of choice in that, and ultimately, as you say, like, if somebody is accepting of those issues, and they don't feel like they're being used or manipulated, or they don't
mhm,
and they feel like they can still have a voice and can still have a little bit of autonomy over their life moving
Mhm.
forward, and that's what they also want to choose. Maybe even if they do want to choose a more constrained way of living,
Mhm.
more, that's still a choice, and if they feel happy with that, then it's not abuse. But ultimately it's if you feel like you're being subjected to it and not being able to have any freedom or anything, then yeah, then that's where the abuse comes in. Because again,
Okay.
like abuse is what happens inside of us because of what happens to us. So
Okay.
it's
Thank you
about,
so much.
yeah.
So let's go into the next question now. So, often you mentioned, and we also have heard, the person who's abused. Sometimes they don't know they are abused, right? Uh, just like that, and you showed many ways like identifying these, how to know and feel. No, even within this discussion, if you feel something is triggering you, you said like seek help. So just like
Yeah.
that, if I ask like, can the abuser also not know they are abusing somebody? Is it possible? Is there a possibility like that? They don't know they are doing that. Like they think it's they want. This is my character, or this is how it should be, or this is how my father or mother used to do.
Yeah.
It can
Okay.
happen.
So
Yeah, please.
absolutely. Like as you say, there is a massive difference between an abuser knowing what they're doing and somebody that has maladaptive behavioral patterns inflicting pain because that's all they know. The
Mm-hmm.
difference is an abuser will do it behind closed doors, but
Mm-hmm.
then when there's an audience, they'll be very different. They won't do it with on display. Whereas if it is a maladaptive behavioral pattern that's
Mm-hmm.
a part of their coping mechanism, in order to keep their own self safe, they will display that behavior indoors and outdoors so people can see the truth of that person. That is who they are. So
Uh-huh.
there is a massive difference between somebody that's being abusive, manipulative, and on purpose, because they know, if they know they're doing it wrong, because they,
Okay.
when there's someone watching, they'll switch it up and they won't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But again, if there's somebody that's only learnt that behavior because that was how they were taught, that's all they know,
Mm-hmm.
then that isn't it. As much as for the person that's receiving it, it can still be abusive. It's not intentional abuse. It's, as you said, it's learned behavior
Uh-huh.
that's not that. So there is that. Does that differentiation make difference? Like if it's behind closed doors but not in
Mm-hmm.
public, then
Uh-huh.
that's abuse. But if it's just always like people will always see it, then that's, as you say, it's a different
Mm-hmm.
kind of um process, and more likely those person are going to be a codependent person as well.
Mm-hmm.
So actually heavily reliant on other people. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then I have seen some places like males sometimes, like even in an open or a public place, you see even in some videos and all. Also, they either slap the lady, no, even at a wedding or something, no, and they are abusive behind also, like in some. And I know this is actual fact. I know there is a person, and actually his wife now is like much more bigger than him, huh? And she actually puts him on the ground and starts beating him up.
Mm,
He's not very tall, or like his stature is small, so in their home also she beats him up, huh? And so they have a child, and this guy was a very innocent person I knew from small days, and like our village surroundings and all. He was there, he was very bright and all, very intelligent and very silent person, no. And uh, you, people in the house can hear him like shouting, no, like, but now it's like such a hard to say normal thing, like nobody even dares to go and get involved. And he doesn't leave his wife because like there's a little child in the mall. Uh, and then when they go to their parents' home also, she's like this is real thing. I'm not making up. And then she's oh, like you try to be a big person when you come to your parents' home. And then there and then also she's like start like a restless, like start pouncing on him. It seems. Uh, so those kind, I'm
Mm.
just asking. I'm not trying to put you in the hotspot or anything like that. So I'm just trying to understand these scenarios and all. So what
Yeah.
can we put those kind of activities there? I'm not telling only females, males, females,
Yeah.
anything. And even sometimes there's domestic abuse, and the males cannot talk about it even, no. And it seems like weak or something even when we talk about this. Or society also puts them as weak or something like that, no. But it's not a proper man would not try to hit a female, no. But still, it's if it's like equal now, it says like uh, you play equal, how to say, like equal rights, no.
Yeah.
So
Playing field. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, like,
Well,
yeah, sure.
I hear what you're saying. I mean, obviously, ultimately, like, I don't know this scenario that you're speaking of intimately, so I can't speak directly to that. But
Mm-hmm.
again, what I can sort of explain to you is that when we understand the nervous system, so we have the brain in the palm of your hand, say. So this is your
Mm-hmm.
prefrontal cortex, like the logical part of your brain. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is where you would be having thoughts and being able to control your emotions in this part. But when we become emotionally activated, the logical part of our brain, it goes offline. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
now we are just going in programming, okay, in our
Okay.
mammalian system. So this is where our fight or flight system is, in the sympathetic part of our nervous system. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and so when you have two peoples that have gone into their emotional logic, as it sounds like, so that they're not, neither of them are logical enough to be able to bring this situation to a close, because they're in their mammalian brain system in
Mm-hmm.
fight or flight state. Or, and it sounds like also potentially one party there is going into that fawn flop freeze state as well. So we've got the person that's in highly emotional state now taking their maladaptive energies and inflicting pain on the person that's gone into fawn. Now, your nervous system will put you into a fawn state in here and just receive the punishment, because it perceives that in that environment, that's the best possible response to make. Okay, because it's not safe to fight or flight or anything else. And ultimately, you've gone offline anyway. So you can't bring logic into that. You're not, you, it's an embodied, it's a somatic, it's a subconscious programming that both of these people are in this moment
Mm-hmm.
now. So when, and again, as you said, like, you know, sometimes if you're out and about and your capacity has gone offline, ultimately our nervous system is primarily designed to just keep that boundary so that our physical body is safe, irrelevant of who it is.
Mm-hmm.
And as you say, ultimately, if you've gone into like actually physically hitting, you're going into that fight state in
Mm-hmm.
that mammalian part, you know. This ultimately is about emotional intelligence and emotional growth,
Mm-hmm.
and being allowing a person to become accountable for their actions, because quite often, again, you know, our nervous system, it wants to move us away from pain. So by being honest about the fact that you lost control, that's actually quite a painful state to be in,
Mm-hmm.
isn't it? You
Yeah.
know, and it's much easier to go, well, if you hadn't have done that, and put the blame on someone else so that you can kind of try to keep control, or you know. But again, it's people that are blaming and shaming aren't actually in their logical point of mind. They're
Mm-hmm.
still in an emotional state. They haven't gone through all of the healing and the down regulation of their nervous system
Mm-hmm.
to actually get into a ventral vagal state where they're back online and actually can look compassionately, with fairness and judgment
Mm-hmm.
of evenness towards the situation, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I hope that answer your
Yeah,
question a
yeah,
little
sure,
bit.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Just again, as you say, understanding how the nervous system works in those environments. With regards to the element where you said, oh, it's become so commonplace that it is just ignored now. I mean, ultimately, displaying physical abuse in front of a child, as much as people need to understand how potentially dangerous other people can be,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a safe environment to be
Be.
bringing a person up, in my opinion. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and And I'm quite sure that if both parties in that environment were asked individually if that was how they wanted to be displaying themselves in front of their child, that for me, myself, my answer was no when it was happening to me. I didn't want to be doing that in front of my children. Conversely, my abuser always brought an argument in front of the children so as to manipulate a picture for the children to assume that I was the perpetrator. So again, you have to understand that there might be a potential abuse mechanism in that as well, and then also as well, if you've done that, then surreptitiously from an abusive person, if they're looking to inflict pain on you again as the victim, they then would be like, well, you did that in front of the children, you're a horrible person, you're not safe to be around our children, and can try to inflict pain in that way, is in abuse. But again, as you say, from the scenario that it sounds to me that you're speaking about, it's a case that, I mean, again, like it does sound that there's a lot of people in our life at the moment that do not have the understanding of how to downregulate their emotional well-being other than by inflicting it onto other people, because we're just not taught how to downregulate ourselves.
Sure, sure. Okay, thank you, Carolina. So, uh, just some people like they sometimes inflict self torture, no, for some reasons. I'm just asking. No, I'm also very. I want to understand this, and that's why I'm asking. Uh, can there be people for some reason who would like tolerate or like in effect like even like abuse? Can there be?
Well, as you say, there's kind of two questions in that.
Uh-huh.
So initially, when we're looking at self-harm is a behavioral pattern that is actually designed to soothe the person away from a greater perceived pain. Okay, because if you're actually hurting your body, that's creating a distraction away from the larger pain, that emotional pain, right? The whatever it is that is making you feel unworthy or unlovable or not good enough. So if you can hurt yourself, and this is also something that as a person, as an individual, you actually have control over that, don't you? You have control over whether or not you hurt yourself, whether or not you intend to actually take it further, or not. Often it's about just being able to express and release pain. Okay, because and it's just like, sometimes it's got too much, your capacity is just too full up. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard of the beach balls in a swimming pool scenario.
No, no,
There's
no.
a theory, I can't
Uh-huh.
remember the
Oh.
person's off the top of my head, but essentially, like, if we are all a swimming pool and we've got beach balls of trauma in our swimming pool, okay, and so, like, the more trauma that you have, the more beach balls that you have. And so by cutting yourself, what you're essentially being able to do is kind of like decrease some of the air so that you can have some space in the water to be able to move. But this is just a coping mechanism. It doesn't actually take the beach ball out of the water so that you can have a clear water to swim in. It just deflates to create a smaller little bit of capacity to be able to just get through the day, just breathe. So, like, does that make sense to be able to
Yeah, and it's
conceptualize that?
not healthy way of doing it, no?
I mean, it is a maladaptive coping mechanism. I mean, I'm sure that any person that actually does it to themselves appreciates that, and also probably inflicts a lot of self-blame and shame, more so than anybody else societally would do. That our own inner critic is the largest critic of them all, right? But ultimately, in that moment, when the other alternative is too much, as an escape mechanism to be able to cope in that minute, in that second, for that part to come up and to try to help and soothe that person, because ultimately all behavioral patterns are trying to do the best that they possibly can in order to keep you alive in the next moment. Like, that's just the whole point of, like, just get through this second, you know. And if that's what you need to do to create some space in your capacity, then, you know, in that moment, that was what you needed to do. And that, as much as, you know, we want to be able to help move people away from choosing that choice, you know, so
Surely,
that
no.
they have a different tool that they can
Mm,
potentially use, you know, a different tool that would be potential, rather than inflicting self-pain,
mm,
would be, um, you know, learning how to maybe do a breathing technique,
mm,
or ultimately using the 5 4 3 2 1, sort of seeing 5 things around you and focusing
mhm,
on that, and then hearing 4 things, and then smelling 3 things,
mhm,
and then touching 2 things, and then tasting 1 thing, or
mhm,
like, there's
mhm,
different ways to do it, but yeah. So yeah, different tools that might be able to help. Again, in the moment, even though you know all of the tools, it might not be the thing that you do. But it's, again, it's like, when you have those tools, you have to practice that behavior as well, so
mhm,
that the self-harm behavior, the neuro pathways in your head, when you feel like this, it goes directly to that. So you have to give yourself the opportunity to practice doing those other tools that are helpful.
mhm.
Like, because even though we know it, if we don't practice it, we don't get it somatically into our bodies.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So now again, with the second part of your question of, do people like to be,
In very rare,
what was it,
like, are there in somehow like some people who kind of like
like,
being abused? I'm just asking, eh?
right, okay, so this is where we have to understand the scale of pain and pleasure. Okay, so if
Mm,
we consider life as being a flat line, and this is where we're all just content and individual vigor, and then like, we have like the waves of life kind of going up and down and
mhm,
up and down. You know, sometimes we feel happier, sometimes we're sad, or sometimes it's painful, sometimes it's pleasurable. And, like, for instance, um, with anything, like, like, especially if you see, like, children, like, if you've ever watched young children when they're having a game and they're getting excitement going into the sympathetic sort of nervous part of their system,
mm,
their nervousness, uh, excitement can quite quickly turn into pain. It's like, no, now I've had enough, now I've got too much, right?
uh-huh,
So so there's about finding that balance between pleasure and pain. Be like, because pain can be and feel pleasurable, okay, like,
mhm,
to an extent. Like,
mhm,
for instance, intercourse,
mhm,
um is actually just two people slamming hard, like, skin against skin, right?
mhm,
In Because of the nature of the nerve senses and the lubrication and everything, it becomes pleasurable.
mhm,
um but also, if it goes to a different way, it can be very, very painful as well. Yeah.
mhm,
Like, so it's about a person's tolerance for pleasure and pain.
mhm,
Um, and also, again, as you said, like, behaviors of what people have experienced in their past as to
mhm,
what they've enjoyed, pushing boundaries, experimenting.
mhm,
Those are different things as well. Um, Again, there can be an element of young trauma that might have a person having a maladaptive coping mechanism, and ultimately your nervous system is just looking to try to make it feel okay. Like, so,
mhm,
so there's that element of, people can get addicted to, like,
mhm,
feeling like they want to have it because they
mhm.
had it so much as a child that it's flipped the switch, that flipped the wiring. And so
Mhm.
what
Oh,
what people would think as painful, now
mm,
they're finding as pleasurable.
so,
So again, we're all very, very curious creatures, but
mhm,
ultimately, you know, if you're feeling like you're doing it because you want to be punishing yourself, um, and you're not actually enjoying it, you're feeling it's more of a, I have to do it, like, I'm addicted to that cycle of every now and again I have to go there. Again, that's, if you want to, it's a choice, and ultimately
mhm,
you're your own person. If you want to explore whether or not that's something that's healthy and adaptive for you, and those are choices you want to continue to make, that's fine, because ultimately everybody's different. um if you're a person that's with someone, then they're asking you to do it, and they've taken you past your own boundary, then obviously that's a different discussion,
Mm-hmm.
because life ultimately is always a negotiation. We're always learning and growing, and what might have been okay with you yesterday, today is not okay, and
Mm-hmm.
that's fair. We're all allowed to change our minds moving forward in things as well, and just because we said yes yesterday, today is no, and a no is a full sentence, and that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, it's like, and then be mindful of coercion in that. It's like, well, but you said yes yesterday, and I expect that of you today. It's like, but so that's
Mm-hmm.
an area that's a grey area that looks to be considered. Yeah. So, I mean, ultimately, that's a question that only the individual can answer,
Individual.
in whether or
Uh-huh.
not they find that
Mm.
is something that's pleasurable for them or not. But yeah, it's
Okay.
a curious question, I have to
Uh-huh.
say.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. So, yeah. So, for example, like if a person does like extensive exercises and all for some reason, is it like how to say like are they like hurting themselves like without even knowing? Like some people like they do it even more, not in a way like they want to build their body or something, as a way of like pushing. Like pushing means like to get off something. Yeah, as a coping mechanism, we can use exercise, right?
Yeah,
Uh, as a
absolutely. Yeah,
but some people can overdo it even, right? Like people, the opposite, they can start eating, no, and become
yeah,
eating disorder. What if like people like because exercise and all, you it's painful sometimes, right? And can they like take it as a self abusive method? They can twist it around if they want, right?
yeah, yeah,
Possible. The
absolutely.
possibility is there, right?
Yeah, yeah. Ultimately, if it's not within balance of your life and it's creating negative connotations, like as you say,
Mm-hmm.
like you're pushing your ligaments so hard that you're actually creating pain, and then instead of giving your body the time to heal those ligaments, you're going back in and working on
Mm-hmm.
damage, then you're creating a longer pathway of pain for yourself moving forward. And again, yeah, so about noticing your body, noticing when is okay to rest, and giving yourself permission to rest as well, because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people in society don't rest very well, do they?
That's
It's
true.
like, I've
Yeah,
just
yeah.
got to keep going. um
Mhm.
Again, and so yeah, so physical exercise can be used as an escape mechanism or a self-punishment. um Ultimately,
Everything
everything in
can.
life,
No, yeah, yeah.
like, the balance is like, where is it healthy, and then where does it become maladaptive? Like, either
Uh-huh.
you're doing eating too much or not eating enough.
At
Again,
all.
those are the opposites as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? So again, it's about finding that balance. um yeah, so like, eating disorders as opposed to overeating, they are slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
And overeating is generally a comforting mechanism, that we will, as you say, again, do subconsciously. Whereas the eating disorders, again, there can be medical problems with that. There
Mm-hmm.
can be potentially allergies or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So it's important, if you've got something like that, and also with overeating as well, like, to actually go and get a test done from your doctor, like to get allergy tests and all sorts of other tests that they
Mm-hmm.
potentially can have, to rule out if there is actually an underlying medical issue. And then obviously after that, then it's about looking at, to see whether or not it's an emotional coping mechanism. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, thank you, Caroline. So we'll go to the next question.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. If you need, please have a sip of water or anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so, what about trying to protect? Okay, like we were talk. This is also regarding to what we discussed. What you explained last time. So, like some people can uh, try to protect somebody, right? And maybe their daughter or like maybe girlfriend or no, or even the girl doesn't like the boyfriend doing some things, or the husband or the wife, right? So what about trying to protect one person by telling your daughter or girlfriend or wife or anybody, yeah, like things like not to party or go to parties or no girls night out or something like that. And both sides, in both sides, no, in both genders and all these things. And so but they can sometimes, maybe people take it, do it in a good way, and they know like this is dangerous, no, or if it's a
Mm.
child like you, but they can consider it as abuse and they can get traumatized and a lot of things can happen like that, right? But the parents maybe, or the spouse or the partner, they are telling in a good way, but they can say like they are like not allowing me to do this, because abuse is like when the definitions and all, when you talk about it, it's like somebody knowingly also trying to control another in a very so what would be your like ideas about these kind of things?
Um, yeah, as you say, ultimately, we do have a duty of care to safeguard
Mm-hmm.
the people in our care, and ultimately as well, like if you're in a consensual relationship, that that has obviously got to have negotiations as to what your parameters are with regards to how you're going to be building your life moving forward. If a person is let's take the relationship area first. So
Sure.
if a person initially was okay with you seeing XYZ person or letting you go out, and then but then when you come back, they're then sort of, as you said, like holding it against you, having resentments, or like, it's that carrot and the stick kind of scenario. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it can be obviously abusive, but again, if it's a person that's actually looking out for your welfare, they might just not be able to articulate their feelings and emotions around it very well. So
Mm-hmm.
again, maybe potentially someone might want to go and find like a relationship mediator or something, to be able to
Mm-hmm.
kind of figure out what that is if they want to continue with that relationship moving forward,
Mm-hmm.
because it is difficult to express our emotions. Like, even like our left eye and our right eye can have a different feeling about it, as we've
Mm-hmm.
got 360-degree feelings about it, like, and again, yesterday was yes and today is no. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like, so again, it's about making sure that you can be very transparent with the person that you want to be with, and understanding that, and if there's an element of degree of safety issue that you're concerned about legitimately, rather than an emotional wound that you're trying to heal
Mm-hmm.
by the other person being there soothing that,
Mm-hmm.
because this is your responsibility to heal this like wound, of feeling insecure or not worthy. That's on you, not the other person. That they have their right and entitlement to go and enjoy their life as well,
Mm-hmm.
as you would want to do for yourself. And in
Oh.
so,
Uh-huh.
and that's so again, that's that element of that. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then but then going towards the parental kind of parent child element
Mm-hmm.
of it, um ultimately, yeah, children do need to have very strict boundaries to be able to be kept safe moving forward, so that they can, go through the systems that we have in place in our different cultures, to be able to help elevate a child up to adulthood,
Mm-hmm.
depending on whatever that system looks like. um Obviously, some systems have been like designed to inflict more fear and pain to be able to control behavior, um, and other systems are
Mm-hmm.
designed more to create curiosity and learning in order to elevate to adulthood. Um, Again, as we said before, a person can only teach what they know. If that's how they were taught, then they can't know any better per se.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, in today's society, again, there's a lot of opportunity to be able to learn, to decide
Mm-hmm.
whether or not what you're doing is still what you would want to choose to do moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Ultimately, a person's perception of what's happened is their choice in a regard, to how they relate to it. Um, so, but what I would say is that there comes a point in a child's life which is actually a lot earlier than we really expect.
Mhm.
Their autonomy and their ability to sort of say no and be negotiated with is a lot younger than what we as adults kind of want to allow,
Uh-huh,
right?
uh-huh.
Um, so, you know, like by teaching people to be seen and not heard, as much as it can feel like that feels like a good way to be able to deal with children that are quite robust and everything. It's an isolating place for a child to be from. And
Mhm.
obviously, again, if that's how you were brought up, then that's what you're going to know. So um, everybody's moving forward, everybody's trying new things. There is the only place that we have 100% high, like clarity of a decision is with hindsight, right? So,
Mhm.
you know, but again, I think that if you resent having those things in your life, that's work that you have to do. If you're inflicting pain in order to, because your capacity has just got too much and you actually can't tolerate sound or movement or
Mhm.
uh, like anything other than just quiet and stillness, that might be a sign that your emotional capacity is at breaking point and
Mhm.
your system is going into it's going into burnout essentially, like it can't deal with more input. So
Mhm.
and like being aware of how you're relating to things is actually really important in that, rather than inflicting just don't because I've got a headache or whatever. It's like, well, okay, where in me am I being, have I worn out? Have I not got any more spoons in my life to be able to like deal with that? And again, it's something like if, say, for instance, you're going to the gym 5 hours and then doing work for 5 hours and then have like 5 hours being with the children, but you've exhausted yourself in those other elements.
Mhm.
That's about looking to see if you've got balance in your life. Yeah. So
Mhm.
but yeah, and sound and light can also be, yeah, massively triggering
Not triggering.
if you're already at maximum capacity. Again, like with that beach ball thing, it's like, no, there's too many
Mhm.
beach balls. Can't take another noise or sound or like, you know, because it just it hurts. It's painful. Your nervous system will give you pain to tell you there's something wrong,
Wow.
right? So,
Uh-huh.
but ultimately, quite often we want to inflict that pain out on someone else and make them change their behavior because, again, as we said, taking accountability for your own health and well-being,
Mhm.
it that's painful too, right? And we're like,
True,
oh, I'd
true.
much rather make it someone else's responsibility.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's very
Like,
tricky, because even in a protective mode, especially in a relationship or even like like a partner, like as partners and all, then sometimes they might not know it can be jealousy, but they put it out as a protective mode, no? So that also can happen even in a parental and child scenario. Also, the parents want to have the children around them, but they don't like them going out or something, so then still those also things can happen, no?
yeah, yeah, ultimately, I mean, as an adult in their prefrontal cortex, like calm, rest and digest, logical part of
Mhm.
your system, you'll appreciate the fact that you're completely allowed to have jealousy. You're completely allowed to have anxiety around the well-being of your offspring. You know, it's not that it's a wrong part per se.
Mhm.
It's just about giving yourself the ability to hold that 1 second space, that counter breath of going, is this me stuff or is this you stuff? And if it's me stuff, am I trying to address it from a point of pain, or am I trying to address it from a point of curiosity to be able to grow through it, you
Mhm.
know? Like, and again, you know, quite often people aren't willing to look at themselves, even though, as you said, that old adage, if you're pointing the finger, you've got one point finger pointing away, but you've got four fingers pointing back at you, right?
Sure.
And it's like, you know, it like, so when you appreciate, like, if I'm casting blame and blaming someone else, it's like, well, what are the other elements that I'm bringing into this, that I, because that's the only place you have any control in anyway, your own reaction and responses to things. You know,
Mhm.
you can't, even though we can, to an extent, as you say, manipulate another person into creating a response back to us that we want,
Mhm.
you know, um ultimately the only person that we have it 100% control of is ourselves.
Mhm. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah? And shall we move to another question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I think we can, maybe one question or another if possible. Then,
Yeah, sure.
sure.
Yeah, as you say, got about an
Yeah.
hour, so
Yeah. No. So, yeah, this is this is I might get like how to say in trouble with this question. So, but like.
well, there's no growth without testing boundaries, and that's okay.
So I have heard this, no, especially as a man, and oh no, like many people complain also, no, and they say like we are not psychics, right? We don't know. Yeah. So regarding like your lady, no, or something like that, I'm asking also as a man, no, and so some men also say like, what about ladies? They say something and they mean something else, no. So then you don't know, have a clue sometimes, right? And then if you do the opposite or something, or sometimes you can make everything very bad, no? And but so because sometimes there are things like that really happening, no, we are not like psychics or some people like that. Okay, we can understand the body language or some things, no, but some are very like very difficult to recognize, even with our parents or mother or sister also this happens, no. And sometimes they are thinking something else, but they're telling something else. And you have not even a clue, no, like, my goodness, what are they even thinking, no? So, uh, so then they can think like, okay, like I'm not well treated, this, I'm being, mistreated, or these kind of things. What would,
No, yeah, absolutely. Very fair. First of all, I'd love to just address the fact that you're chuckling with it, kind of like trying to utilize the happiness like feedback loop to kind of like bring yourself back up to a happier state. Because as you say, it is painful when people are miscommunicated, when people don't understand you. It is so painful because ultimately, especially as you say, when you're in a relationship where the well-being of the other person is a massive priority to you, you know, and being not able to understand that, that's where fear comes in, doesn't it? And rejection and pain and all the other stuff, like, because our lack of understanding, the opposite to understanding is fear. It's like, oh, just and that's a horrible place to be, obviously, being in fear, because when you say, as you say, you've got a projection of what you expect your life to look like with integrate with that person, hopefully. And then, but then, what does the alternative to that look like? And that's a huge opportunity of decisions and overwhelm and everything. There's a lot. So I get what you're saying about what and why it's like it feels uncomfortable to even broach it, because it is painful to think about that. The potential of not is painful, so we tend to try to aim towards that. With regards to the element of men understanding women, I think that, like, I think it was Dr. Jordan Peterson that was talking about the neuroses of men versus women. So, like, women are twice as likely to be hypervigilant to threat attack than men are. So I think that all men initially need to understand that, just from a biological, physiological element of the nature of the different sexes, women are twice as likely to be more kind of paranoid about things and see intuitively the potential risks and dangers, and whereas a man's going to be like, oh, you're on that page again. It's like, well, yeah, because ultimately, when you have the responsibility of having to spend a year's worth of your life bringing the next life into world, you have that. That's just a life mechanism to keep you safe, right? So there's that element of that. And again, because of the nature of how women are twice as likely to be like neurotic than men, we have to go through twice as many loops to be able to get to the point. Whereas a man's like, yeah, it's here to there. Whereas for us, it's like, but here could be, here could be, here could be, there could be, there could be, there. Like, and that's just the way we're wired. And then compound on top of that all of the extra hormones that we go through as well on a cyclical monthly basis as well. So sometimes it's like, I really wish I wasn't being over dramatic per se, but there's all this other stuff that's going on, plus the pain of the body rejecting the potential of what didn't happen as well, like, so that, and that's like everything hurts in that moment, so women are just kind of going through a layer of, I'm living my life with already having, like when I said about that spoons theory, and for that week of the month, like, this is how many spoons we have to start the day. So I've already got to my capacity before you did, like, um so just giving oneself the ability to kind of have compassion for just the natural physiological differences, even though, you get the adverts going, what if one for you, you can do it, even though you're honest, like, no, I'm having a duvet day. Like, and that's it. Stop. um and again, like, if you're in a relationship, is about just like knowing when you've got enough spoons to be able to do the day, and when the other partner's got enough spoons to be able to do the day, or when you've needed to collaborate and share things. And again, like, sometimes for men as well, it's like, this is the day when I can only give in 3 spoons, and about communicating to their partner and saying, look, actually, I'm tired today, is there any chance we can cancel doing this, or like relax on doing that? And having communication levels as well, like as much as we don't really appreciate it, but a relationship is a business ultimately, and it needs those check-in points, and as much as I would love that, I wish I knew that before I did my before I had my thing as well, to have like check-in points, and to hold each other accountable in those as well, because even though we'd have kind of meetings and discussions about like where money was going to go and whose responsibility it was to do this and that and the other, but I would quite often, again, you have to be careful about that, because that was where I got financially abused, because then they'd go off and just overspend on their limit of what they were allocated, and then it would be, well, now I can't afford the mortgage, so I need to borrow from your bit, and so, and then it was, oh, I'll pay you back, and then that never happens, and then that snowballs and stuff like that. So, again, about holding that accountable and having that strictly in black and white, and so, so you don't leave yourself room for manipulation in that area as well, um but yeah, ultimately it's about being brave enough as a partner as well to say, I'm feeling like something's off a bit here. Hopefully the other person's reciprocal to the conversation, and if it's an adaptive partnership. But again, if it's an abusive partnership and you tell them, I'm feeling something's a bit off a bit here, and then you start to notice that they're actually inflicting pain on purpose, you have to be very careful, because when they realize that you can see through their mask now, that's when the abuse is going to escalate. So yeah, so there's an element of that as well.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
funny part was like, sometimes like we guys, like we don't even know what we did. Like, did we do like kids know, like we don't even know, like, and then like it's like some like us, like, what did I even do? No. Yeah, so it's difficult to read it and understand it, and it's in a way it's yeah, like you said, there's a darker side also towards it, no. And
Yeah.
but there are some places like you doesn't seem right. And if you, for example, like sometimes when you talk, I'm not telling everybody, there are very intelligent people and all. So like,
Yeah.
if say you are trying to solve a problem, no, and then you give like a solution, then they say the total opposite of it, no. And this happened with my sister, and that's why I'm telling her. So then okay, like you, okay, like it's your choice, no, I don't want to, like, I'm not trying to enforce you, I'm just trying to help you, right? Then you tell this side, no, then she goes back to the opposite, no. Then you're like, okay, then now what, right? So there are some instances like that, then you don't really know, like, okay, like then you just, okay, like let things settle by itself. So you try to talk it out and no things like that, and then they just seems like it's like looping in the, or like going in circles. So there are some instances like that also that can happen, no.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, like there can be potentially like different behavioral mechanisms, like it's sort of like an ADHD kind of element of like 1 minute is this, 1 minute is that. There's like all over the place, like, and that because ultimately the design in that behavioral pattern is to keep them so confused and keep everyone else away so confused, so that they're not looking at the actual problem. There's that element of let's go here, let's go there, go everywhere else, because it's a defense mechanism to say, I don't want you to look at the actual problem. I'm going to confuse you away from it. Again, with the male and female element of men finding a solution when a woman actually just wants to vent. Like nobody nobody really likes the disempowerment of being told what to do, right? Even though the solution is there, it's like until I've actually asked you for the solution, I don't want to be told it, because that's disempowering. Okay, and that inflicts pain. It's like it's a control mechanism. So moving forward, you can absolutely suggest things, but ask for permission first. Like, I can see a potential solution. Would you like me to give it to you, or would you like to just continue to work around whatever it is that you're working around? Because I'm happy to do both, but I will put your own boundaries in on that. Say, let's have this discussion for like the next 10 minutes, but I don't want to allow you to let me go into this confusion for over an hour, because that hurts me too, and I don't want to do that. So you have 10 minutes of my time. Or ultimately, let's bring this conversation to a different point in time when you've been able to figure out what you actually want to get to. Because quite a lot of people start a conversation without knowing where they're going to go with it, you know. So yeah, so think that those kind of elements of just ask permission if you want to give someone a solution. And if the answer is I just want to vent, it's like, well, then put a boundary around that, put a frame around that, say that's fine, but we have 10 minutes, because it's emotionally exhaustive for me as well to hold that, because when you go and see an emotional coach, they've been trained to be able to hold and express and stuff like that. But especially when you're in a close, intimate relationship, like for instance with your sister, there's the world of everything else that you have all of that background together as well. So it might not be necessarily that you're the right person to go with them on that, in that. What is it that you both want your relationship as siblings to look like? So as you say, quite often we expect our siblings to be emotional crutches for us. I mean, none of us really get to that. We just kind of expect that, and it's like, well, is that fair though? Especially if it's always one than the other, and there's an imbalance in that as well. So yeah, so something to think about, definitely. Amazing. Yeah, well, thank you
And
so much. It's
okay,
been
thank you so
amazing.
much.
Yeah.
And thank you,
Yeah, it should take
Caroline.
us about an hour.
Yeah, surely. Yeah, like, and we'll try to answer the other questions maybe the next time, or like if you, Caroline chooses a different topic, we'll talk about that. So thank you so much. We'll definitely put all Caroline's details and all in the video as well as the post, so you can contact her and uh,
Okay. Yeah.
get in contact with her. So Caroline, thank you so much, and you have a wonderful day. And thank you again for joining and being here with us all. Thank you so much. Yeah? Have a great day.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. You too, Sanjeev, and also as well, just again adding that caveat again, if any of these topics or issues have touched very closely on you today, especially because we were speaking about self-harming and everything, seek local help and support. There are 24-hour services around to you locally. We want to be able to make sure that you can get the help that you need today, so that we can help you tomorrow, right? And yeah, so, and I look forward to having those remainder of questions again moving forward. And if anybody has any questions that they want to bring up and add to the sessions as well, be more than welcome. All right, brilliant. Well, thank you so much. Have a
Thank you
beautiful
so
day.
much. Yeah? Have a great
I
day,
wish you luck.
Caroline. Okay, see
Thank
you
you.
soon. Yeah?
Bye. Thank you. Bye. Later.